Arkansas works. The vote count in the Senate keeps shifting. How the governor can get the supermajority he needs if the plan works. The legislature's minority party. What's the plan? And a tip of the hat to an Arkansan who wore many hats. Arkansas Week next.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.
This is Arkansas Week.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for Arkansas Week, where in tonight's edition, Arkansas Works is pretty much the only subject. The season is less than a month old, but you're really going to get some inside baseball tonight. We're joined by Jacob Kaufman, KUAR News in Central Arkansas Public Radio, David Ramsey, reporter for Arkansas Times, and Steve Bronner, an independent journalist based in Little Rock. You almost have to go inside. The big story is at the end of the week, Arkansas Works, the incarnation of the private option as envisioned by, just drafted by the Hutchinson administration, has no funding in the coming fiscal year, having lost a Senate vote by 2. But it's still very much alive in that sense. David.
Right, so there are all sorts of machinations around this. So the impasse is in the Senate, as you mentioned. You basically have 10 senators who are very opposed to the Medicaid expansion. Now they lost on the legislation itself. Last week the legislation passed by overwhelming supermajorities, or not quite supermajorities, overwhelming majorities, bipartisan majorities in both houses. But on the Senate side, where it passed 25-10, that still leaves 2 votes short of, as I mentioned before, the supermajority, the 75% threshold that's needed to actually fund the medical services appropriation that the Medicaid expansion, the private option, is included in. And so what these 10 senators have said is, unless you sort of cave to our demands and eliminate the Medicaid expansion, we're not going to move forward with the medical services appropriation. And that presents a showdown, because that budget doesn't just include the Medicaid expansion, it includes all of Medicaid. So this is funding for the elderly in nursing homes, funding for children in our kids, and so forth. So you have the fear of a shutdown situation, and one way or another, this needs to get resolved by the end of June. So you had the vote in the Senate, and as expected, the 10 who oppose Medicaid expansion blocked the appropriation. So we're at a standstill, and that is where you had some drama, some very inside baseball drama yesterday. The governor came up with a plan, and basically what they proposed is they said, we will let you attach an amendment to this appropriation that says we're killing Arkansas Works, which is what the 10 who oppose the Arkansas Works Medicaid expansion want to do. So they said, we'll let you attach that amendment. We'll even be the sponsors of that amendment.
Well, we'll vote for it.
Senator Jim Hendren, who is one of the key backers of the governor's plan, went to joint budget and sponsored this amendment. But the catch is that the governor signaled ahead of time, there was no secret, that he was going to use his line item veto power to veto the amendment that said we're killing Arkansas Works. So the concept was that this would allow the 10 to vote for the appropriation that they wanted. In other words, it would go to joint budget, they would add this amendment, killing Arkansas Works, it would come back to the Senate, precisely the appropriation that they would like to see, which is the medical services appropriation, the rest of the Medicaid program, but Medicaid expansion taken out. They would vote for it. Governor Hutchinson's allies and the Democrats who support Medicaid expansion, this was the hope, would also vote for it. It would then pass. The governor would veto this one thing, and so you kind of have, everyone would be happy. That was the theory. Medicaid expansion would continue, but the 10 would get to vote against this policy that they don't like. Now, to be clear, on policy, the governor's side would win, and the 10 would essentially surrender. But I think what was appealing to not all but some of the 10 who opposed Medicaid expansion is that they sort of got to vote their conscience. They got to vote for what they wanted to vote for. Not only that, it paints them into a little bit of a corner where otherwise they would have had to really take this obstructionist tact of opposing their own bill, right? Opposing their own appropriation and holding up everything because, again, they want to block the Medicaid expansion. So that was the hope. But when it got to, in order for this to work, you have to have a coalition that all agrees to this kind of wink-wink plan, right? So the proponents, the people that want Medicaid expansion, have to understand and sign on, and everyone has to vote for this essentially show vote with this dummy amendment that is then going to be vetoed later. The governor explained this to Democrats, but for the most part, I think almost all Democrats just found out yesterday, in some cases maybe just like an hour before the vote. They had some questions. They got a little squirrely. They weren't sure whether they quite liked this idea. And so when it got to joint budget, the amendment was proposed. And the Democrats, I think from their perspective, voted their conscience. They said, hey, wait a second, we don't want to vote for this amendment that kills Arkansas Works, even if we know really you're going to fund the Medicaid expansion. And so they voted it down. And so it was an interesting and clever scheme that it appeared at moments yesterday that this was going to resolve it. I should say at least 2 of the 10 said, okay, we'll do this. We'll cave on the policy. We'll go along with this plan. So it could have been over as early as today. But basically, the plan is only good insofar as you had a coalition backing it, and Democrats weren't quite on board. So it got stuck in joint budget, and we'll try again next week.
In the days before, in the 48 or the 72 before the Senate vote, we kept hearing one source or another. Well, the administration now needs 27. Okay, it's got 26. Wait a minute, now it's 27. We've got 27. 10 minutes later, no, we've got 26. 5 minutes later, no, we're back to 25. It's so, to use that term, fluid. It's almost incredible. Steve?
It's tough to write about, too, especially if you're going on a deadline a couple of days before. Not only that, but now the House Democrats are beginning to flex their muscles a little bit. They have sent a letter to Speaker Gillum saying we will not vote, or we don't think that we should vote on any appropriation until this is settled. And that includes the general appropriation, which pays their reimbursements, which under the Constitution must be voted on must be agreed to before anything else. So at the moment, the Democrats are starting to play a little bit of hardball too. They shut down that vote yesterday afternoon after the joint budget, which means that nothing can get through the House yet until that gets through, and they are beginning to show signals that you have to pass this or we're not going to pass that. So we have 2 different sides that are beginning to really play some hardball now.
I spoke with Representative Bob Ballinger this week. He's one of those opponents in the House, at least, which appears they have enough votes in the House to get it passed, at least. And he said if Democrats start exercising
Well, that has been, let me interrupt, that's been the assumption, Jacob, all along, was that, we can only, we're only announcing we need 75 over there. Well, we've got 70, 72. Really, we've got maybe as many as 77, 78,
And in fact,
if we need them.
And in fact, the governor announced, called the press over to say, we have the votes in the House.
Yeah.
This is about these 2, they need to flip 2 senators.
And
Yeah, but
it's easier for some representatives because we're no longer voting on the policy of the program. Instead, you're just voting for the funding of the program, which is included, as you mentioned, in the entire Medicaid appropriation.
So basically, you can have it both ways, or possibly.
Well, and
there's a tradition of having it closer to both ways, at least.
Typically, this is kind of a new norm, and so they're muddling through. In fact, all the time, folks vote on appropriations that within them fund policies that the legislators disagree with. And traditionally, that has not been considered to be a vote for every single little policy in it. But anyways, for whatever reason, the private option Medicaid expansion has had a different set of rules. And the assumption is, and this is what has made it so difficult, is that if you vote for the appropriation, again, which includes all of Medicaid, then you are voting for Medicaid expansion, or as the advertisements will inevitably say, voting for Obamacare. That's why you have this kind of reluctance. But I do think on the House side, as Jacob mentioned, you probably have at least 5 or 6 who say, look, we voted against the legislation, we lost that fight, but we're not going to shut down the agency.
Well, and talk about setting the precedent for some odd norms. If this is the way to continue Medicaid expansion in Arkansas, to do this every year, that's a whole another layer to this mess we've been having. So,
When you say this, you mean the governor's weird trick or the supermajority?
the weird trick.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I mean, I think that one of the interesting things about the weird trick, and the weird trick again being this line item veto idea, this wink wink
Have
thing
we just
where-
coined a phrase here on the program?
There
The
you
weird
go.
trick?
Let's call it the line item weird trick. If that becomes
Brian King likes to call it a scheme, and if it's a
sure,
scheme.
and it's it's interesting, and I think that one thing to keep in mind is that whatever we like to talk about on the show or as we're walking the halls of the Capitol, I think most normal human beings actually don't care that much about the sort of process. They care more about the outcomes. But in terms of this process, what it might change going forward is if this became a kind of norm, this weird trick, it might replace the current norm of this sort of supermajority shutdown fight. In other words, this may become a way out of this, what seems like a yearly standoff, where you have 9 or 10 senators saying, give us what we want, or we're going to shut down the government, essentially. I mean, that is the leverage point that the Constitution builds into, the Constitution gives the minority that prerogative. Now, I think that you will have some critics of this plan say it's kind of procedural wrangling or trickery or a scheme, and it is convoluted, right? It is weird. On the other hand, it also is, just like the 10 senators blocking the appropriation is their constitutional prerogative, the weird trick is just the governor using his constitutional prerogative, right?
Well, I talked to Senator Larry Teague a little bit. He's the chairman of the Joint Budget Committee. Steve was there at the same time, and I also talked. He said at least that. Well, he made the same argument. It is part of the law. It's part. I'm using something that is in the law. It's not any more nefarious than anything else. But he did sort of acknowledge it is a new creation, or it's a creative use of an existing
Sure.
law. It's a new interpretation.
Sure.
So
It's. I mean, norms matter, and it would be creating a new, and I think it's fair to say weird norm.
and one that might. I mean, we could assume that someone might have an interest in filing some sort of lawsuit about this outcome, about.
Sure, and I mean, and this is, the governor's office believes that they are on firm legal ground here. But of course, whenever you have a strange new norm, I imagine that the lawyers will be working overtime. And I think it's worth saying, part of why I think this fell apart is that Democrats just had questions, and including legal questions. And I mean, I've talked to some folks, various folks in the Democratic caucus, who said essentially, they had questions that they did not think could be answered within the space of an hour, which is essentially what needed to happen, right? I mean, most Democrats, I talked to some lawmakers who found out about it essentially on the news. Most of them, I think, were briefed an hour or two before the vote. So it was, I think from the governor's office's perspective, they wanted to keep this under wraps because I think they had fears that the 10 would face pressure if this got public and they started folding. But the problem with that approach, again, is that the Democrats, who have to be part of the coalition, sort of never had time to digest this or ask their own questions.
Yeah, it was a sort of, explain that to me again.
I think that's right.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's right.
Steve, this is sort of an archly partisan, or certainly archly ideological age that we seem to have entered into, that was ushered in by, frankly, the age of Obama. The General Assembly of Arkansas is beginning to take on characteristics of the national legislature, meaning the Congress. Today, April 15th, the House had vowed to get a budget. We're going to stay in Arkansas, but the House of Representatives, under the new Speaker, had vowed to get a budget done by April 15th. They're not even close.
Well, that's true. On the other hand, the legislature is a very different place than the Congress. It is actually a remarkably collegial place. In fact, some might say too collegial. Larry Teague, who just mentioned, is a Democrat in charge of perhaps the most important committee in the legislature, in a legislature that's dominated by Republicans. And there are certain norms, and in the legislature there is the norm is not to try to embarrass each other. The norm is not to try to make things harder. The norm is to try to work together, actually, which is why they pass 1,000 bills in 3 months often. This if this continues, it would be the equivalent of with 30 seconds left in the football game when the quarterback kneels down, instead of everybody
Takes the knee.
taking a knee with them, suddenly now every time in that situation, the defense comes up to the quarterback. That's the same situation, a change in the norms. We'll have to wait and see. I think that the goal of changing 2 of the no votes to yes is not going to happen. What you do have is you have two no votes who want a way out of this. And as long as that continues, then we can get somewhere. And at this point, I don't think we're at the point where Republicans and Democrats and pro-private option and against private option are ready to strangle each other. But we do have more conflict than we've had in a long time.
Well, there are now, we're zeroing in on 300,000 Arkansans, close to that. About 280 now?
So I think 267 is the last sort of DHS number, but might be a bit
Well,
higher.
we'll call it 265 and go low. You got a substantial number, better than a 250,000 Arkansans now getting health insurance. The hospitals pretty much like the idea. No matter whether you accept Speaker Gillum's version of a budget absent the private option, nobody doubts that they're going to be pretty substantial cuts in the general revenue budget. The school people are upset. Higher education is appalled. Everyone is speaking out. It's this public relations campaign that, whether or not it's been orchestrated by the Hutchinson administration, and who could blame it if it did orchestrate one, have we reached the point yet where sooner or later, the thinking is sooner or later we're going to get this job done somehow, or is it still in doubt?
Proponents of this certainly say we're going to get it done somehow in the future. The governor has been a little bit more specific in his attacks in this public relations scheme of late, specifying individual state legislators, saying how cuts in their districts would pan out at least. But on the other hand, we have those 10. We'll see if they rally anybody together. We're in recess until Tuesday. Americans for Prosperity is coming out strongly in favor of them, and they just argue that the governor's budget cuts, he's presenting a worst-case scenario that is simply not what their budget would be.
But I think for all of the reasons that you just articulated, the dynamic is that the governor and the sort of the overwhelming majority in the legislature that backs Arkansas Works are not going to surrender on this. Yeah. And which is, I mean, in order for the opponents to win, their end game is, they are making a kind of threat that if the Medicaid expansion doesn't end, they're going to refuse to fund the medical services appropriation, which would, everyone agrees, including them, that would have disastrous consequences. The way that they win, their end game, is for the governor and for the Democrats and for pro-private option Republicans to say, okay, we cave, we hear your threat, we'll just end the Medicaid expansion. I think that's quite unlikely. And for that reason, is the outcome in doubt? Could we get quite close to a really horrific shutdown situation? Potentially. It just depends on how long the 10 want to hold out. But it is quite hard to see their end game, which I think feeds into the idea that I think we all hear at the Capitol, that probably in the end this will get resolved in a way that continues the Medicaid expansion. I think that what the governor floated yesterday, as Steve mentioned, was a way to say, we don't really think that we're going to change these people's minds, the 10 that are holding out, but maybe there is a way to move forward that gives them a kind of out. And I think that the big question for Democrats going, if that becomes the plan, if they continue to try what we're calling the line item weird trick next week, I think the question for Democrats is going to be whether they can kind of swallow that procedural oddity to get the substantive policy win that they want. Because it may in fact be the only way. And talking to Democrats yesterday, I think it's possible that they may both be sort of overrating the possibility that any of the 10 are just going to change their minds. There's a lot of talk of kind of Democrats saying, well, the 10 should just do what's right. Clearly, clearly the 10 think that what is right is something different than what Democrats think. Clearly there's been efforts to kind of move them that haven't worked. So it'll be interesting to see whether, the fact of the matter is that several of them yesterday said that they were game to move forward with this weird trick plan. it will be interesting to see whether groups like Americans for Prosperity are successful over the weekend at changing their minds, and whether that equilibrium still holds next week. As you said, these things are very fluid.
Well, AFP was quick to throw the flag on what we're now calling the line item weird trick.
Yes.
AFP said promptly, we're not fooled.
And of course, I mean,
How much cover actually does it provide?
that is a sort of political question that
Ultimately
the
decided
10
at the
are gonna
ballot box, I guess.
exactly. And I can tell you, I spoke with Bart Hester, I spoke with Blake Johnson, both of whom said that they would back this approach, and what you can understand what they're saying. What they're saying is, and this is the message that they're going to try to take the next time that, if they get primaried over this, for example. What they said was, look, we asked for a very specific bill, we got it, we're not going to vote against what we asked for, and then it is out of our hands. If the governor chooses to veto it, that's on the governor. And that's kind of, I think, the framing of all of this, is that the governor, the weird trick idea is an effort to for the governor to take even more ownership of it. So that Bart Hester, let's say hypothetically that maybe Bart Hester might want to run for Congress someday down the road. Well, he can say, I fought this every step of the way. I voted for something that would have ended the Medicaid expansion, and then the governor made this choice to veto it, and that
But
was
I
out of
was
my
true to
hands.
my school.
Exactly. Now, so that is a coherent political argument, and I heard both Hester and Johnson make it yesterday, and it, at least in terms of the sort of thing you would say on the campaign trail, I think it made some sense. I think that the reason that AFP came out against it, or any advocacy group or anyone that just opposes the Medicaid expansion, the reason they don't like this is not a surprise. It's because this continues the Medicaid expansion. So if your goal is a policy goal to end the Medicaid expansion, this is like a terrible deal. And I think that's why AFP immediately said, not even you're not fooling us. The governor's being clear about what he's doing, but just no, right? Because ultimately, again, on policy terms, if they went with this plan, it's a surrender.
Right. Steve, we had, or all of us, we lost this past week Ray Thornton, former U.S. Representative, former State Attorney General, former President of the University of Arkansas System, former ASU lottery chairman. He wore so many hats during his very long public life in Arkansas.
Yeah, you went through part of the list. I'll go through the rest of it. Born in a two-bedroom home without electricity or plumbing, Yale Law School graduate, UA student body president, Korean War veteran, Arkansas Attorney General, three-term member of the House of Representatives, helped draft the articles of impeachment against Richard Nixon, won 32% of the vote in a three-way race and lost. Pryor won 34, Tucker won 33, he won 32. President of ASU, president of UA Arkansas System, another 3 terms in Congress, 8 years in the Arkansas Supreme Court, and chairman of the Lottery Commission, which he held until he was 81 years old. That's quite a life. And also, we are beginning to see the end of that group of 1970s Democrats that were so huge in Arkansas politics that Senator Bumpers faded away recently. He passed away. Senator David Pryor still going strong, making some waves on the UA Board of Trustees, but many of those great leaders are beginning to go right off in the sunset.
Quite a change of generational shift in our public, not just our politics, but our public life as well.
But things change. Another thing about what do you call him? Do you call him Justice Thornton? Do you call him Representative Thornton? It's hard to know which title to put on him, but he also had his name on the lawsuit that ended the term limits law for congressmen in Arkansas. So he did, as he left Congress, say that the tone was changing, but I guess the memories of these guys will live on.
Of course, he had the rare feat of representing 2 different congressional districts in Arkansas during his lifetime. The 4th district during the Nixon administration, and I saw him give a speech on C-SPAN clip recently where he said, 75% of my district voted for Nixon for president, but here I am voting to impeach him. And then he later went to the 2nd district in 1990, I believe.
And history proved that certainly that his next 2 elections, I believe, demonstrated that Arkansas was ready, or at least the 4th District was ready to say goodbye to Mr. Nixon's presidency. It wasn't quite the political, there was no backlash, really.
Well, I'll leave that to you, I suppose.
Well,
And then he stood against
Are you
President
suggesting
Clinton.
that you weren't even born yet?
I'm not up to speed on the 4th District's.
Fair enough.
And then he stood up against President Clinton on his budget agreement that because of a gas tax increase when Clinton was president. So Ray Thornton not afraid to go against presidents.
I'm reliably informed that when he cast that vote, if Mr. Clinton could have put his fingers around Mr. Thornton's neck, he would have squeezed. He was just absolutely enraged by that vote. But, the friendship somehow survived. Thanks, guys, for coming in. Thanks to you, as always, for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Arkansas Week is made possible in part by the Arkansas Times, keeping you informed by covering people, events, and politics in Arkansas. By FM 89, KUAR in Little Rock, with in-depth news reporting, analysis, and discussion each weekday.